friends, it's Miss Brenda. I hope you're all doing well. I miss you all so much. So today we're here for another speech and language lesson. Today we're going to learn about the water cycle. So I'm going to pull up a visual real quick and just talk about the water cycle first, about what it even is. Then we're going to read a story about it. And then we have some review questions at the end. And just like we normally do, I'll ask you the questions, but I won't give you the answers until the end. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up the visual first. So here is the water cycle. So what is the water cycle? Okay, so you know how it rains, especially it rains a lot in the summer? There's a whole process behind that. It doesn't just rain out of nowhere, right? So this is the process behind all of it. So here we have a picture of a lake. Okay, so it could be any water. It could be water from a pond, could be just a puddle. It could be a lake like in the picture. And what happens is when the sun comes out nice and bright, it heats up that water. So when that water gets heated up, this water down here lifts up, well, it turns into vapor, and then it goes up into the sky. That is called evaporation. Okay, so here's a picture of evaporation. So the water turns into a gas form. That's called vapor. So that water that's laying out on the ground, it lifts up, it's gas, and it lifts up into the clouds. That's evaporation. And next, okay, so once it evaporates, that vapor is up in a cloud. But when it does that, it transforms. So that gas or that vapor that's in the cloud turns back into water or turns back into ice. So that's called condensation. So that's what's happening up in the clouds. So as this is happening, as the vapor is turning back into water or back into ice, these clouds get very heavy. So when they get heavy, they can't hold the weight anymore. So what happens is it comes down, and that's called precipitation. Okay, so here you see precipitation. The cloud gets very heavy, and then the rain or snow comes down. Let me show you a picture down here. Precipitation. So precipitation could mean snow, could mean rain, hail, or sleet. Those are like icy kind of forms of rain. So that's what happens. And then it starts all over again. Okay, so that was just our visual, but now we will get into the story. I just want to talk about that first. Okay, so our story is called The Water Cycle. This will go into detail about what I talked about. Okay, so it all starts from recycled water. The water now on Earth is the same water that has always been here. Luckily, nature recycles water using the water cycle. Okay, so there's a couple words in here that I want you to pay attention to because they might be in your review. And this is one of them, recycled. So recycled means to use again. Like we recycle things at home, we recycle cans, newspapers, things like that. We do the same thing with water. Water gets recycled because it's a cycle. So all that water that's on the ground already comes up into the sky, forms clouds, and it comes back down again. So it's all the same water. So recycled means to use again. Okay, so the first step in the water cycle process. Evaporation is the first step in the water cycle. The sun heats the liquid water. The water changes into a gas called water vapor. The vapor rises into the air. So this is a really good picture of it. It looks like some kind of swamp or something, and it must be very hot because you see this that looks like steam coming off of the water. This is vapor. So it's really not a liquid anymore. It's turning into a gas or vapor, and that's lifting up into the sky. That's our first step. Our second step is making clouds. Up high, the vapor meets cold air and it cools. It turns back into liquid water droplets or freezes into ice crystals. This process is called condensation. Okay, so that's what's happening up in the clouds. That's when that gas is changing back into a liquid or into ice. So condensation is what forms clouds. High, thin cirrus clouds, like up here, these are called cirrus clouds. They are made from ice crystals. And down here, these low puffy clouds, these are called cumulus clouds, and they are full of water droplets. Okay, so if you see these clouds up here, there's ice crystals in them. And these low puffy clouds have water in them. Okay, and then the next step is coming down. So the water droplets or ice crystals in a cloud can get too heavy to stay in the air. Then they fall to the ground. This process is called precipitation. Precipitation falls in many forms. Rain is liquid water. It falls when the air is warm. Snow is frozen ice crystals. It falls when the air is freezing. So snow is precipitation and rain is precipitation. And then on the next page is precipitation. So sleet and hail are also precipitation. Sleet goes from frozen to liquid to frozen again before hitting the ground. Raindrops freeze in the air to form balls of hail. So see these things? They look like ice cube balls. These things are called hail. And that's a form of precipitation. So precipitation can be rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Once precipitation falls, the water cycle begins again. Nature is a great recycler. Okay, so once the rain falls down, it's not like it just ends. It starts back up again. So after the precipitation happens, the water evaporates again, comes up into the clouds, and then rains again. So it recycles. And that is the end of our story. Okay, so let me move over to the review. Okay, there we go. All right, so I hope you are paying attention to those key words. Okay, so I'm not going to give you the answers until the end. I want you to try your best. You can touch the screen to choose your answer. You can say your answer out loud, or you can print this and circle your answers, whatever you want to do. And as always, this is a hard topic we learned today. So as always, feel free to go back to the beginning of the video, watch it again, or you can pause it if I'm going too fast, okay? All right, so number 1, what does recycled mean? So the water cycle recycles water. So what does recycled mean? Does recycled mean to use again? Or does recycled mean something new? Okay, number 2. What does evaporation mean? Okay, real quick, I'm going to go back to the visuals to show you because this is hard. Okay, so here's a picture of evaporation. So that's our first step in the water cycle process. Okay, so what does evaporation mean? Does evaporation means that water turns to ice? Or does evaporation mean that water changes into water vapor? Number 3. What does condensation mean? So I'm going to go back to a visual. Condensation. So this happens after evaporation. Okay. So what does condensation mean? Does it mean that vapor? Does it mean vapor turning back into water or ice and forming a cloud? Or does it mean to rain? Condensation. Okay. Number 4. What is precipitation? Let's go back to our visual. Precipitation. Okay, so what does that mean? Does it mean that water is changing into vapor? Or is precipitation rain, snow, hail, and sleet? Okay, last question. Once precipitation falls, what happens? So this is the last page in our story we read about. So what happens after precipitation? Does the water cycle stop or end? Or does the water cycle begin again? Okay, so that's the end of our questions. I'm going to go over the answers. So if you need more time, like I said, pause it, okay? Number 1, what does recycled mean? Recycled means to use again. What does evaporation mean? That's number 2. So this is evaporation. That's when water changes into vapor or gas. And that vapor or gas rises up into the clouds. What does condensation mean? So condensation is when that vapor, that gas that's in the cloud, that turns back into water or ice. And then that helps form the cloud, and the cloud gets heavy. What is precipitation? Okay, so this happens when the clouds get too heavy. So precipitation is rain, snow, hail, and sleet. Those are all forms of precipitation. Okay, last question, number 5. Once precipitation falls, what happens? The water cycle begins again, right? Because we talked about this whole recycling process. It doesn't just stop. It uses that water that fell from the precipitation and it starts over again. So once the sun comes out and it's nice and hot, that water will come up for evaporation. Okay, so that was our review. I hope you all learned something and I hope you had fun. So I will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.